We have the UN Deputy Secretary General, Ms. Amina Mohammed, and the Resident Coordinator of the UN, Ms. Renata Lok-Desalegn, here as well. So a warm welcome to all of you. So friends, we are really pleased to see a large number of young people who've registered to be part of this dialogue with young achievers, innovators, climate activists, and entrepreneurs in this hall, as well as in the open hall downstairs. The upcoming Secretary General's Summit on Climate Change later in the month. We thought to engage in a moderated dialogue with young people and the Deputy Secretary General on innovative approaches to combat climate change. We've partnered with Youth Ki Awaaz, India's largest social justice media platform for young people, to address and engage on critical issues, to help us curate a selection of young climate champions, green entrepreneurs, innovators, students, and youth groups who are all here to share their ideas and views. Anshul is a social entrepreneur and a young media influencer, and the brain behind Youth Ki Awaaz, or YKA, that he set up while at school to break the culture of silence around issues that young people grow up with, and to address the lack of citizen voices in the traditional media discourse. YKA has very quickly emerged as a representative of Indian youth voices, with over 4 million monthly readers and 100,000 users till date. Over the last 11 years, Anshul has gained extensive experience in citizen-powered media and participatory movement building, with YKA stories often starting nationwide movements creating impact. He's an Ashoka Fellow, an Inc. Fellow, and a young innovator. And Anshul has helped several high-impact organizations engage young people in a variety of important conversations, from politics and gender to art and culture. He's also on the Civil Society Advisory Group of the UN Women for India, and has previously served on the board of Jhatka, which is a campaigning organization committed to building grassroots citizen power across India, and collectively a World Economic Forum and Unilever collaborative nonprofit to build a sustainable future. So ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Anshul Tiwari as he kickstarts and sets the tone for our discussion.
Hello, everyone. Hello. That's wonderful. It is an absolute honor for Youth Ki Awaaz to be partnering today with the United Nations for this dialogue in New Delhi, alongside hundreds of inspiring change makers, and to host Madam Deputy Secretary General, Ms. Amina Mohammed. But before we begin, let me just remind you of something she once said that fits this gathering and the reason why we're all here. Whether the glass is half full or quarter full, it is some full. It just means there is a lot more work to be done. It's for us to try and fill that glass. And that, in many ways, defines the effort that needs to be put in by each one of us to tackle climate change today. I was born in a generation that grew up listening to the importance of climate action and why we all need to come together, but struggled to really do something about it. Struggled because we inherited a planet that was ailing. Struggled because we were constantly told that climate change is not as critical an issue as maybe getting a job. Struggled because even after years of understanding and seeing for ourselves the impact of climate change all around us, we realize that a lot more needs to be done. Is conserving energy in our households enough? Is not wasting water or refusing single-use plastics enough? Well, let me tell you something. Maybe a decade ago, that was enough. Today, though, that is where change begins. Young people like us need to take multiple steps forward and create a path not just for ourselves, but for our communities, friends, parents, and neighbors to take actions at our own level, to have an impact that can be multiplied across the world. You ask why and how? Well, that's what we're here to learn today. I continue to be inspired by Madam Deputy Secretary General and her commitment towards the Sustainable Development Goal of climate action. Along with her, we are honored to host 5 phenomenal young change makers who have led the way and become examples of what one individual can do to impact an entire community around the world. It is my most humble pleasure to welcome them all. Before I leave the stage, I have an ask from all of us. Let this not be a forum where we listen, agree, and start tomorrow on the same note. Let this be a moment where we absorb and accept that this will be the beginning of change that we ourselves will lead. I thank the United Nations for joining us in this wonderful initiative and welcome you all here. Thank you.
Thank you, Anshul. We now have the 5 climate champions that Anshul spoke about, who will speak very briefly on causes close to their heart. We begin with Shikha Shah, co-founder and co-CEO, Canva Fiber Labs, that she set up with her college mate 2 years ago. Shikha is educated in business and entrepreneurship. Her experience ranges from working in family businesses, a textile project, filmmaking startup, and working with American and European companies, co-founding a textile manufacturing and technology company. Canva Fiber Lab grew out of a year-long project to create a company in the hemp industry. Given the intensity of climate change, sustainable choices for high-consumption basic needs like the use of textile is, of course, imperative. So sustainable textiles made from hemp are definitely desirable. But since sustainability doesn't sell at scale, if it isn't feasible and viable, Fiber Labs stepped in to make them sustainable, viable, and scalable. Shikha actively seeks to address the UN's sustainability goals and introducing new sustainable materials, and she has been awarded for her innovative efforts by the Indian government and several other international agencies. So I'd like to now welcome Shikha on stage.
Today, I'm going to talk about something that you and I use almost daily. From the carpets you walk on to the shirts you're wearing right now, everything is textiles. But have you ever wondered about its ecological impact? What are our textiles made of? 75% of our textiles are made of polyester or cotton. This one seemingly simple decision is what textile industry takes at the very cradle stage, and it impacts almost everything after that, from how it is made to how will it be disposed of. For example, consider polyester. It disintegrates into microplastics, a problem that needs no introduction. Out of 50 trillion pieces of microplastics, a couple of them are sitting right now in your own gut and damaging your health in ways yet unknown. Consider cotton. It takes around 2,750 liters of water to make one t-shirt. When the house is on fire, we can't let an omnipresent thing like textile be so pollutive. Just like how oil and gas, the world's biggest polluter, found its answer into alternative fuel with solutions like electric cars and solar energy, textile seeks alternative materials. And that's what we do. We convert agriculture waste of certain kinds into textile fit fibers that can then be used to make anything and everything from your shoes to hats. The beauty is that these materials are, one, environmentally sustainable. For example, they use 7,000 less liters of water as compared to 1 kg of cotton. They use 0 pesticides, 0 insecticides, and much more. They're also socially inclusive as we use agriculture waste. This creates an additional income for the farmers who might only otherwise burn this waste to create an additional pollution. And third, it is not just a goody-goody thing, but also a valid business proposition because it's better than what we are wearing right now. It has properties like antibacterial, anti-UV, and much more. Now, a few of you might feel that sustainable materials of some kinds exist, right? But then existence does not mean that they have been applied at scale. It is not the existence of desirable solution, but the scalability of the desirable solution that brings impact. And we address that. For example, the current solutions are expensive. hemp sells at 5 times the price of cotton. We make it viable by bringing down the prices of those materials by 50% in an industry where every percent of margin matters. Second, they're incompatible. For example, what if Elon Musk said that the electric cars wouldn't work on the same roads? It won't work, right? Similarly, fibers need to work on the same machineries. We make that possible. And third, they are affected by the limited supply as the technology is not scalable or the agriculture is controlled. We solve all these problems by making things progressively viable, conveniently executable, and most importantly, adequately available. Thus, solutions like this, when taken at scale, are so interrelated that they can help mainstream sustainability. Let's take sustainability to scale. Thank you.
Thank you, Shikha. Up next is Tarun Bothra, co-founder and CTO, Sathi, who leads the R&D product development, technical, legal, and corporate operations team of Sathi. In 2015, three friends, along with Tarun, collaborated to create fully eco-friendly, compostable sanitary napkins using locally sourced banana fiber from the state of Gujarat, where Sathi is based. Sathi pads are biodegradable and compostable using plant-based materials for the leak-proof outer layers of the napkin. And in 2019, Sathi was chosen as the third most innovative company in the world by a leading magazine in the US. Last year, Unido awarded Sathi as the best clean tech startup. Tarun believes sustainability is important for our survival and wants to give back to society. With an innovative business model and technology, Sathi has set up a standard that is pretty high for feminine hygiene and has been recognized for their sustainable initiatives. So put your hands together to welcome Tarun Bothra.
Menstrual waste. These two words has been heard a lot, separately, together. But why it is becoming a big problem? Let's start with certain facts. Today, every one of us knows there are 7 billion people across this world. Half of them are almost women, 3.5 billion people. If I say they are creating 150,000 tons of menstrual waste, which is plastic, every year, we might take it for granted. 3.5 billion women creating such a small amount of waste, it's okay. If I say that's just Asia which is creating that waste, still contribute to half the world's population, 1.7 billion women, still okay. If I say it's India, world's largest democracy, creating that kind of waste every year, still okay, 500 million women, not a big deal. But if I say only 16% of that population is creating such a huge impact, now it's alarming. Why we are using plastic to make such a product of necessity, which is used to be by masses? Let's look at the economic part of it. In India, if you want to treat 150,000 tons of waste of plastic every year, you need to pay $250 per ton. That is 37 million euros every year, which is a huge amount. If you combine a commercial pad's price plus this price, is twice as high as if you can buy any biodegradable pad out there today. So why we are still doing it? 1 out of 6 women in India today have access to sanitary napkins, cause poor menstrual hygiene, early school dropouts. They are not eco-friendly, they contain chemicals, and because of which they are also having a lot of health impacts. What we have to give is 100% compostable and biodegradable sanitary napkin made out of banana fiber, which is cheaper, better, and faster. 55% cheaper than any other these commercial premium pads. Better in terms of biodegradability. Within 6 months, it's gone out of this earth. It will convert into a biomass. Faster in terms of absorbency compared to any other commercial pads. We are 1.5 times higher in absorbent. So if you see, we are not having just an innovative model, but we follow circular economy in which we take care of all the stakeholders in our supply chain, which is 100% zero waste. So we work with women to make our pads. We have a program in Jharkhand in 40 villages where we are distributing 1 million pads without any cost to women to change the behavior to use pads instead of clothes. We work with farmers. We have increased their revenue by procuring this agricultural waste by 5 million Indian rupees. And the environment we have impacted, we have removed 10 metric ton of plastic waste and 16 metric ton of CO2 equivalent out of this nature by giving our pads to the women. We have this circular economy model where you can see all of our stakeholders are themselves entrepreneurs, micro-entrepreneurs, be it farmers, be it ladies who are making our pads, be it women who are selling our pads in rural areas. So they are earning it on their own. They don't have to be working with a company or being unemployed. They are self-employed people who are getting benefit out of a company. Every morning, I have this weird habit to go to my office to take a picture of a sunset and a sunrise in the sunset in the evening and sunrise in the morning. It just gives me a pleasure to see what beautiful world we have today. But this small thing which I'm holding in my hand, if we don't work on it today, this could be tomorrow, which you will be seeing out of your houses, your offices. I hope all of us understand and have a food for thought that why this is important to take care of such a small necessity and make it sustainable and natural. Thank you.
Every small thing does count. Speaking next is Arun Krishnamurthy, founder of Environmentalist Foundation of India, EFI, an environmental activist who initiated the campaign of cleaning various lakes across India. Arun founded Environmentalist Foundation of India in 2007 in Chennai, and it now has branches in Hyderabad, Delhi, and Coimbatore. He first worked with Google for about 3 years before quitting to work in the social sector. He then joined Goodall's Roots and Shoots in India, an organization that helps young people to resolve problems within the communities before setting up EFI. EFI today has over 212 volunteers in Chennai and a membership of over 1,000 in the rest of the country. Till date, it has been successful in cleaning 93 lakes in 14 states. He graduated in microbiology from Madras Christian College and then went on to study at the Indian Institute of Mass Communications in Delhi. Arun was also one of 5 chosen for the prestigious Rolex Awards for Enterprise in 2012 for scientific lake restoration in Chennai. Please welcome Arun.
When was the last time you actually could drink water from a lake near your home? Forget drinking water from a lake or a pond. When was the last time you could swim in one of those water bodies? Forget swimming in one of those water bodies. When was the last time you could just sit by one of these water bodies to watch a bird fly through? This is the image of 2 different lakes from 2 different parts of this country. They look alike. Solid waste, liquid waste gets dumped into freshwater bodies as cities and urban centers are rapidly growing. If you're drinking water from a plastic bottle today here and you're dumping it out, we need to make sure that it doesn't get dumped into one of our lakes. Liquid waste of varying kinds, from a shampoo wash to a car wash to more, drains into these lakes that I'm showing you. Also, what you're seeing is these lakes have several encroachments on them. That being the problem, what is the solution? And we also agree to the fact that you and I are part of the problem. Can the solution be without us? That's where a community-based, collaborative conservation effort is important. If I handed over a piece of paper and a pencil and I asked you to draw something about nature, you would draw a hill, a stream, a coconut tree, and a V-shaped bird. But when was the last time you actually had all of this? And if I asked you, should the lake, Sanjay Lake in Delhi, be protected? All of us unanimously would say yes. And if I asked you, if you're living around Mayur Vihar, did you know you and I are polluting that lake? We would be very worried and say yes. If I asked you, do you want to come forward and help me clean this lake? You would say yes. And that's where we need to absorb and need to act on it, and that's what we've decided we'll do today. That being the solution, where there needs to be a science-based, community-based conservation effort, which includes removing of trash from that water body, plugging in the sewage which flows into this water body, and scientifically reviving it based on several hydrogeomorphological standards. That sounds too big, but hydrogeomorphology, break it simple. Hydro is water, geo is earth, morphology is nothing but structure. You need to understand where the water comes from, where the water goes, where the water stagnates, how you and I are using it, and what we're doing to that water body. When we do that, this is possible. A lake on the expressway in Chennai, which was once contaminated, polluted, where people came together, and we've been able to revive this. We've been able to revive this to the extent that the G-shaped island that you see there is for nesting birds, frogs, snakes, and more. This planet is not just for you and me. If we believe that we can talk loud and walk straight and we are the superior species, we are absolutely wrong. Without electricity, you and I would not know where to get fresh water from. Without somebody growing our crops, you and I would not know how to find our food. But every other life form somehow can. And that's where we need to ask ourselves a question as to how we're preparing ourselves for the new normal, which is extreme heavy rainfall, which we've just seen in Mahabaleshwar, 7,000 mm, or extreme prolonged conditions of no rainfall in Chennai that we witnessed this year. That's where we need to come together to make sure that this impact is sustainable and not let things like this happen, where we now have lake view apartments, lake view roads on the lakes without the lakes to be viewed anymore. And we need to come together to make sure all our words turn into action. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Our fourth climate champion is Smitha Singhal, founding director, Absolute Water. Absolute Water is a total water management company with engineering capabilities to undertake and execute turnkey solutions for water and wastewater management that Smitha set up with help from her father in 2015. Absolute Water's commitment to the environment keeps it in the forefront of product innovations, purification, and recycling technologies. Absolute Water is also the country's first 100% organic water recovery from sewage system. Smitha completed her higher education from Delhi University and the Fashion Institute of Technology, New York, and has over 15 years of experience as a brand image consultant in diverse fields and multiple companies. She's also the recipient of the Woman of Excellence Award by the government-aided Indian Achievers Forum. So here is Smitha to tell us more about Absolute Water.
Can we do better in India where 62 billion liters, and billion with a B, mind you, of sewage is produced every single day? Our vision is to make sure that when we take water from our taps, that we can drink it straight from there without thinking twice. And then that is exactly what our innovation does. We address this major problem by providing 100% organic water recovery decentralized systems, which is simple, which is effective, affordable, and moreover can be operated by unskilled labor. Our technology basically imitates nature, an ecosystem that thankfully still exists. Here we use our heroes. This is the biofilter bed that we have, and this is my hero, which are the worms. The worms who consume the micropollutants for their sustenance, and they actually thrive on it. Once the worms have done their job, the filtration system additionally uses completely organic and inorganic media such as wood chips, pebbles, and sand to give you water that you can actually use for agriculture. And this water can further be treated to give us drinking water with advanced treatment. All of this is done with no chemicals whatsoever. There is no sludge generation compared to other conventional systems. It is non-RO, mind you. Therefore, no reject, resulting in 100% conversion. Use this and you can actually throw out your chemically dosed RO filters that you drink every day for drinking water. There is no odor, it's minimal electricity cost, high return on investment, minimal operational cost, civil and modular units, adaptable as per space constraints, and absolutely no noise. Actually, the only thing that you can hear is the birds and the insects. All of the above features make this system a fully sustainable, green, and circular technology where it is working constantly. Now imagine if across the entire country, this technology is used with every resident welfare association, with every institute, with every industry, states and cities. What could happen? India's 38 billion liters of untreated sewage can be converted into clean drinking water available to 690 million people every single day, 24/7, in a 100% organic manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Smitha. Our final presenter is Niveda RM, founder and CEO, TrashCon Labs. Niveda founded TrashCon in 2016 after she and a group of her friends had cleared a lane near her college in Bengaluru that had been piled with waste for months, only to find that it was filled with waste in a week's time. Without revealing how and what they actually did, let me share with you that today TrashCon benefits 40,000 people, prevents 1,600 tons of carbon emissions, 146 tons of GHG emissions, and saves 54 acres of landfill area. TrashCon has been awarded several accolades from the UNDP, from the government of Karnataka, Shell, Cisco, and many more agencies. Niveda is a qualified chemical engineer from Bangalore's RV College of Engineering. So please welcome Niveda, who will elaborate on TrashCon.
So before I begin with what we did to create that change, I asked one question when the waste reappeared again. And I'll pose that question to each one of you here. I asked, where does the waste go after it goes out of our houses? Any answers? What happens to waste when it goes out of our houses? Landfill, okay, Delhi people know it well. But frankly, I had absolutely no clue until 2 years ago, till I saw this. And as you rightly said, this is where 95% of the 2 lakh tons of municipal waste ends up in dump sites, in landfills, in rivers, oceans, and क्योंकि अभी कोई जगह बचा नहीं है in front of our houses. And what is step 2? It gets burnt, right? So I got thinking, there should be some solution to this problem which is so huge. But to find a solution, I had to know the root cause. So we started doing a lot of research. What could be the possible root cause? Why this is happening? Because I am disposing my waste properly. But still this is happening. And after many months of research, we came to a very profound realization. So now you see that blue color cover there? It has sanitary napkins, diapers, blood, tin, metal, glass. Whatever is there in your mind right now will be there. Even dead rats have seen it. So now how can anybody possibly make any value out of this waste? Now what happens when you don't make any value out of this waste? It has to get dumped. So that's when an idea came, what if I take this waste and try and segregate it automatically? Because I don't want to touch the waste, I don't want somebody else touching the waste, into degradable and non-degradable. Because the moment I separate it, I can make some use of the degradable and some use of the non-degradable. It does not have to go back as trash. But as simple as it sounds, we were talking about a system that was taking all kinds of unknown variables and giving out known variables. It's impossible. No, look at your own dustbin. Every day it changes. And that's what the world told us. Niveda, it is impossible. But that's exactly when we thought somebody has to do it. So we spent 2 years in the dump sites slogging to find out what is it that could help us distinguish. And after 2 years of sitting day and night in landfills with the rag pickers, ladies and gentlemen, introducing the world's first completely automated mixed waste segregation unit, TrashBot. We did it. We did it. And TrashBot can segregate thousands of kgs and tons of waste automatically into degradable and non-degradable, and it can fit inside the stage. That's how compact it is. And TrashBot can take this mixed waste, segregate it into degradable and non-degradable. These are real images, friends. Left side is reality, right side is after it goes into the machine. And the degradable waste is then converted to biogas, bio-CNG, compost, given to farmers, used as fuel. And again, we were stuck at the non-degradable part because that was all these one-time use plastics, multi-layered packaging. So we went a step ahead and made another technology which can convert these into boards. Boards that can be used instead of plywood and particle board. Boards that can be used as tables, chairs, furniture. Friends, these are real products that we have made already out of the waste that you see every day on the streets. Thank you so much. And these are all different possibilities. So what I'm saying is out of this waste, we have made manure, biogas, bio-CNG, tables, chairs, furniture, plastic roads. I'm gasping for breath because that's the number of opportunities that could happen with this technology. So without already, we are doing 40 tons of waste today. We are looking at 100 tons by the end of this financial year. And by 2025, we are looking at 1/4 of India's waste. And why are we doing this? We are a group of engineers who are slogging day and night in the dump sites to solving one challenge after another. Why are we doing it? Because we are driven by a very simple dream. A very simple dream in which I tell a story to my daughter, a story 20 years down the lane, saying, Beta, once upon a time, there was trash. And my daughter says, Mama, what is trash? And that is the kind of vision we have. Come, be a part of the solution. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Niveda, for elaborating on trash. Ladies and gentlemen, with immense sense of pride and achievement in each of our young warriors who are with us, we celebrate our climate champions. So a big round of applause for our achievers and change makers. Vibrant interaction is with the UN Deputy Secretary General, Ms. Amina Mohammed, and Ms. Hita Lakhani of Youth for Earth and the Global Mentor for the Pop Movement. We move on now to the next part of the program, which is the most important part of the program. So it is with immense pride that I introduce to you one of the most powerful women in the world, the UN Deputy Secretary General, Ms. Amina Mohammed. She was the Minister of Environment for the Federal Republic of Nigeria for 2 years prior to this appointment, where she steered Nigeria's efforts on climate change, protecting the environment, and conserving resources for sustainable development. Before that, she served as a special advisor to the former UN Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, on the 2015 development planning and was also instrumental in developing and bringing in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, including the SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite the UN Deputy Secretary General, Ms. Amina Mohammed, to share her thoughts with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I've heard messages from 5 incredible people, and I feel like now I can actually go home and retire. You guys can take over now, no future, now. Really, the alternatives that I heard today, a strong, powerful voice about what you could do with alternatives. And you must have them if you're going to say, get rid of something, or let's get to 1.5 degrees on our climate agenda. I also heard leaving no one behind, with the most miserable of issues that people don't want to talk about, that stigmatize people, that you find a solution for. I heard about conservation, solutions for that, and in fact, the day before yesterday, I was also supporting a conservation initiative in Rwanda where I was naming a baby gorilla, and people would think, what are you doing that for? That's a little dangerous. No, it isn't. It's about seeing political will turn into conservation, which then turns into jobs and sustainable development, and that's an amazing way to even hear it again today. I also heard, as you talked about recycling, but recycling for scale, and that's what you need. I mean, India talks about scale, not just about a few people, but millions of people, over 1 billion, and I think that that is ambition. And last but not least, I heard the waste to wealth story. What you did there was tell us that, as Madiba said, it only remains impossible until it's done. So it's amazing. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. The phrase demographic dividend is probably the single most boring way to describe the unprecedented catalytic and unmitigated opportunity that's facing all of you. India's new generation of young leaders, entrepreneurs, and certainly agents of change. This is the largest generation of youth in history, and India is home to one of the largest generations of young people in the world. And you're still growing. UN projections and otherwise will tell us that you'll be one of the youngest populations in 2030. India helped shape the SDGs. I was here when we were trying to shape those 17 goals, and they were pretty difficult to do because everyone was asking for ambition. And when you're talking to 193 countries and you want consensus, ambition's pretty hard to get. But it is young people like those that I met here and civil society that I met in India that helped to do that. And you talked about social inclusion. You talked about economic growth. You also talked about scripting the future of our planet that is at a critical juncture. We're not on track right now to achieve those goals. 2015, we promised the world. As we did that in 2015, I went home to try to see how, in fact, we could implement that. And it's a tall, tall order, because the realities on the ground are not straightforward. There are many complexities that come to challenge you. And so it is about a journey. And that journey, 2 years on for me in environment in Nigeria, then took me back again to the UN. And for the UN now, it's about how do you operationalize what we promise people? And we need to do that at the country level. So this is not about the 40,000-foot conversation in New York. It's really about what we're going to be doing on the ground here. The innovations that we've seen in India today, we really we're impressed. They're not enough. They're not at the scale that we need, but we know that they're doable. And that's what we want to do. Invite you to build the alliance, the movements that cut across borders, that partner, ally with your peers, because you can. Technology connects you in a way that we have never been connected before. So today, I would be very wary if someone came up here to call you to action. I strongly believe that young people are already taking up that action, but you're not being heard. And I think that that's what needs to happen. Amplify the voice, and that's what the UN is here to help us do, that we don't just hear you in India, we hear you across the world, every region, every country, every village, that you are part of that movement that makes the change that we need, not tomorrow, but today. I wish every one of you best wishes. I know that I'm going to get some serious questions here. Please ask the questions that you would have asked or you would have talked about when I'm not here. This is probably the only chance that you're going to get in a long while. So be really bullish with me as we are with India, because we know that you can be leaders in this world for a better today and an incredible tomorrow. Thank you.
So at the outset, let me thank both of you, Madam Deputy Secretary General, for choosing to be here and engaging in this dialogue with the young people in India, and you, Hita, for being part of this conversation and inspiring many young people to join in. So thank you very much. We've listened to an amazing set of young people with revolutionary ideas that have contributed to ongoing changes around us. What were some of the thoughts that appealed to you? If you could perhaps share your reactions. First, you, ma'am.
Okay, first, your introduction. I want to be like you when I grow up. That's the first one. And you should clap for her, because it's amazing what she's done in her age. I think what I heard today is people being proactive, actually looking out their window and saying enough is enough and I want to do something about it, and thinking creatively about what to do. Just really studying your environment and say, I have a solution and I'm going to do it. So the courage to do that and to persevere, because I think we do live in a world where it is, let's press the button and it happens really quickly. But actually it's a journey, and it's a pretty tough one. Are you ready to take the first few steps? And today I heard young people who've already done that. And so for me, it was very inspirational and hopeful.
Hita, would you like to add any reactions?
It
it made me feel very incompetent. And I feel they should be sitting here in my place instead of me. They've actually created change on ground. I am trying to bridge the voices, bridge the gap between the international policies, between what happens on ground today. And these guys are sitting here doing it without complaining, without crying, without bickering that we don't have the resources, we don't have the money, we don't have the news outlets. You know, nobody recognizes us when we walk down the street. But these are the actual change makers. These are the guys who are actually creating change today within our societies, and we don't see them every day.
Yes, that's true. That's true. How do you change minds? How do you engage with the youth and tell them this is something that you need to do?
So when I took workshops with school children, I went with school children on climate change. I went school to school, door to door, talking to them on just the basics of what climate change is and how it's affecting our lives in India today. And not talking about, yes, giving examples of polar bears and giving examples of the Arctic ice melting, but very concrete effects of climate change that we see. We had very unseasonal rainfall in India, in Mumbai, where I live, when I was taking the workshop, and it happened just a few days before this workshop was there. And when you talk to the students, when you understand what their impacts were, or, did they even realize why this happened? So just connect the dots between the events that are occurring and make them realize that this is actually happening today. This is not something that's going to happen in 100 years' time or in 50 years' time. It's happening today in my life. And
impacting each one of us.
It is.
Yeah.
And if I don't start today, it's already too late. And if I don't start today, it's never going to happen. So they need to realize that the moment we finish this workshop, I can't go back for my lunch break and throw that thing down on the street. Because we just had an hour-long discussion. We had to realize that the change has to start right from the moment you step out of the classroom there.
World leaders have promised to leave no one behind in this quest for sustainable development, but we're a long way away from delivering on those promises. What are the critical things that need to be in place, Madam Deputy Secretary General?
I think, first of all, the will to want to do this. Leaders did come up, and remember, the SDGs are voluntary. It's not legally binding, and I think that's the most powerful thing, is that they committed to do that. And in every country, it's the one thing we've seen in the last 4 years that there is no doubt about. It's a framework that everyone can deal with. So we've got something that we can galvanize around. The next is really to have that at the country level, to see how innovation, an idea to address what we want to do with ending poverty, maybe it's creating jobs, or it's addressing sanitation, and to come up with that idea and to think about it as a collective, and to start it at the smallest place that you can in your society, in your home. As we just said the other day, somebody was talking about their trash. What do you do about it in separating it? And come out into the society, into the community, and then you begin that movement for change. Now, some of that is to do with government and the policies and how you lobby that to make sure that you see those plans translated into budgets through parliaments. Others are really about your entrepreneurial skills to begin these things, whatever the movement, whatever the idea, and to scale that up. So it's complex. It depends on your environment. It's never a straight road. And I think that, you've got to look around you to see how can you mobilize people to do things. As they say, success has got many, many mothers and fathers, and failure doesn't have too many. I think you have to know that you would need to fail, and it's okay to succeed. And when I listen to how many people have tried to get into Parliament to make a change, some will say to me, why are you trying to get there the first time? That's ambitious. Have the ambition. But if you don't get there the first time, try and try and try again until you do. And I think people learn from that and join in that journey. So it's, again, come back to the countries, hold your leaders to account. If this is and make them the champions so that, they open that pathway for us to engage in. It's very difficult if those doors are not opened. You see a crack, open it. Wedge it open, get in there, and act. Don't wait to be asked. That's the other thing. You have a framework now. Don't wait to be asked. Just act on it.
Climate Action Summit on the 23rd of September is really where the ideas will become concrete initiatives that governments, businesses, and people everywhere will use to accelerate climate action. So what are you hearing from people, from governments, from the private sector or businesses? Do you see a movement happening there? Is there a groundswell?
Oh, absolutely, there's a groundswell. It took a lot of courage for the Secretary General to say that what he wanted to do was to start the wave so that this drum roll all the way to the 2020 target, we would actually come with NDCs, our nationally determined contributions in 2020 to go from the 3.2 degree world that we're at to 1.5. Now, were we going to be able to do it? Again, it's impossible until it's done. And what we did was to pick up the issues that we already know, put them into about 9 coalitions, get the co-leads from a government, from the private sector, people who have to do things. Ambition was the name of the game. And then we started to become granular about it. You want to talk about 193 countries, you're not going to get very far, because it's not 193 countries that really have the biggest footprint on the emissions. So we honed in on the who does. Over 82% are the G20. And we began to look at which of those countries in that G20 really ought to stop coal, really ought to step back and think about what they're doing with fossil fuels and where their transitions are and how they will come to 2020. Now, what that's done is that it's galvanized civil society, in particular young people who are just marching on. There's an organic movement going on now that whatever the UN does, it's moving. Now, what we have to do is encourage it, keep a fire under our feet so that we keep going. Coming to September, the first, we started off with a youth summit. Why do we do that? Well, you know, frankly, you've got the vision and the energy. And you've also got the technology to make it happen. And if we keep saying we just want to have you at the table and talk about it, it's not going to get very far. So we start off with the solutions that you will bring and to see how we can scale those up. It's going to be tough. Then we come to the governments. What are governments saying? Governments today are not being very ambitious. There are a few who are, but the ones that we really need to make the movement, that's not happening. But what has happened now is that we've shone a light on it. There is a light on who is not moving, and you can galvanize the advocacy to make that happen, to call them out, to explain to people the implications of not acting. And it's about your future. There's no more powerful a person to come to the stage than a young person to say, you have no right to deny me my future today, because it is the actions of today that will deny that future. So I think what we've done is more knowledge, more advocacy. I'm surprised how many people didn't know, and that we've created a movement that I think it's unstoppable. There's no going back.
It's the youth that really needs to stand up and ask from all of these meetings that you are seeing spells hope for us.
I think even in the few years that I've been going to these meetings, I see that there are more and more young people active. And it's not just me and my little group of friends who are there, but it's, I mean, from across the world, from globally, we've seen more and more young people, right from island states like Tuvalu or Fiji, to countries like Germany or the USA or Chile, for that matter. So across the whole gamut of, races, genders, we're seeing more young people present at these meetings. I think the good thing has been that we're, at least now, decision makers are, how do I say it? At least they're accepting that, okay, young people have an active role to play. Otherwise, the narrative always was like, yes, you're young, you have a role, but in the future. And now they're realizing that your role is today and not in 5 years, not in 10 years, not tomorrow, but today. And I think that is the good change that we're seeing. There's still a long way to go, and we're still actively trying to not just push for a higher ambition, not just push our countries, but also hold them accountable. I think it's high time where you just don't speak saying that, okay, you know, we have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it's high time you show where you're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's high time the young people actually go up to their negotiators, go up to their politicians, go up to people in power and tell them that, listen, you committed 5 things and you've done only 1 out of 5. When are you going to do the other 4? And for that, we need to be aware. If I'm not sure of what the 5 things are, there's no way I can go and ask my government that.
So let me see. We've got a question by Rajeshwari Datta, who asks, can we still win against climate change? Time is running out.
Absolutely. I mean, who's going to tell us we can't if we're running that race? I mean, you cannot be told that you're not going to win this race because the alternative is just not possible. So yes, you can. Absolutely.
I think overall, yes, we can win this race. And it's like everyone said, it's like the young lady who came and said, everyone told us it's impossible to segregate unsegregated waste. And everyone says it's impossible to fight climate change. We're already running out of time. We're probably crossing some tipping points. But who knows when? And who knows when you say we're running out of time? If you do it quick enough, you probably catch up.
Here's another one from Prashant Kumar J5, who says, everyone says that young people have the solution to halt the climate crisis. But as a young person, what power do I have when governments are failing to fight climate change?
Pick something that really bothers you. It could be just probably a tap that is leaking in your house. The entire night, tip, tip, tip. Figure out how I can fix that problem. And pick something that is easy to do. Pick something that is right next to you. You don't have to go out and look for global solutions in one night. It's not going to happen. But what you can do is you can solve that leaking water tap problem. You can probably figure out that if I'm not segregating my waste, probably segregate it in my house before it goes out.
Shikha Sharma 304 poses one on the imminent New York summit. And she says, I understand the Secretary General is hosting a climate action summit later this month, but haven't we seen many summits, conferences, and conventions to spur climate action? How is this summit any different?
Well, first, youth lead. I don't think we've had a summit yet where we have 2 days where young people are leading the summit, opening it up. The second is the Secretary General has said, don't come with any more rhetoric, come with a plan. And we're not allowing anyone to get on the stage that doesn't have a plan that is actionable, and commitments that are coming from it, from the private sector, from civil society, from governments themselves. So much so that when at the beginning, very few were coming. Then we started to advocate a race to the top. And now we have over 70, 80 leaders that are coming to say what they're going to do. Now, it's not the climate summit that is going to deliver 1.5 degrees. That's the beginning of the journey of trying to hit the target for 2020. And so we expect a lot more action up to Chile and what we do with the ocean summit in Chile in December. We expect even more as we go through the year, through the different summits that we have until we come to COP26 in the UK. So I think, what's different is the young people are really up there in front. And it's an incredible agenda. I've never seen so many people come with, the solutions. It's not again talking about them. And then we've called leaders bluff, I think, and leaders at every level. So it's business.
There's Anuj who asks, does climate change affect some sections of the world population more than the others?
It does. It does. If there's a flood in the city, the first persons to get affected are the ones living on the streets. If there's a water shortage, the first people to get affected are people who do not have running water in their taps. If there's a heat wave, the first person to die or probably suffer from a heat stroke is someone who's living on the streets. So yes, there are certain sections of society, or there are certain countries that are more vulnerable to climate change. There are certain populations that have greater impacts to to the effects of climate change.
Yeah, absolutely, people are affected. Not only is that, climate change is exacerbating situations of migration, refugees, conflict. It really is across the world. I have to say that we have some complexities and contradictions. When we tell you that over 80% of the emissions are coming from the G20, who are the top 4 countries? And in those top 4 countries are some very poor people. So it is also, as we grow our economies, we need to find ways of doing that in a greener way. That means that our expectations for that growth, we need to really have a national discourse about needs versus wants. And it's really important to have that, because if we continue to want the way we are today, our consumption is going to ensure that climate change does destroy everything that we've ever known. And I say this because if I look at the whole continent of Africa, they're contributing 2% to climate change. And the G20 is over 80%. So Africa has an opportunity, and it's receiving more in terms of the exacerbation of the climate change that's happening across the continent. So they have a chance to invest in a greener economy, a bluer economy, as do the islands. But we have to take a decision in many of our countries, this one included, how we want to grow. how we want our economies to grow. And they will start to affect you here, but you will also have a liability, which is people in other parts of the world. And sadly, the burden of this, the losses that we have, are women and children. These are the most vulnerable, even of the poor, of the poorest of the poor. So I think it's a wake-up call to that part about us that is about our humanity. We need to think about that because we owe it that the future that we lay today does not condemn tomorrow's generation. And as I had the privilege of walking through the memorial to Gandhi here today, that was the first thing that really impacted me, was that the light that he shone on we as human beings, not as anything else other than human beings, and just thinking about what it is that you would want for yourself, that you should want for your fellow human being, regardless of tribe, of tongue. We have strength in our diversity, not weaknesses, and so we really need to think that through. It's as much about changing our hearts and minds as it is the concrete actions that we take.
Thank you very much. We've got time just for this much. Thank you so much, Madam Deputy Secretary General and Heather, for that really invigorating dialogue.
Hyderabad, popularly known as the City of Nawabs, located in southeastern part of India, is famous for its rich cultural legacy. A prominent attraction of this modern yet historically and culturally rich city is the traditional Hyderabadi bangle. They are not just symbols of matrimony and accessories for women, but are objects of beauty in themselves. Ask any Hyderabadi and they will definitely say so.
हमने ऐसी चूड़ियाँ कहीं भी नहीं देखी. ऐसी चूड़ियाँ हमें